When you're ready.
Throughout the majority of individuals' lives, peer pressure is a determining factor in many aspects of life. While this type of influence can be beneficial in moderation, too much of it can lead to an unhealthy relationship with being perfect and can lead to burnout. Societal pressure can impact an individual's performance by creating an obsession with perfectionism that ultimately leads to burnout. In this presentation, I'll be talking about the influence of peers, obsession with perfectionism, burnout in aspects of life, and the solutions to solve these problems. According to Merriam-Webster, peer pressure is a feeling that one must do the same things as other people of one's age and social group are doing to be liked or respected by them. The human desire to fit in with one another can lead to an intense infatuation with what people think of them. Peer pressure has been prevalent since sticking with the herd was necessary for survival. Not only is this practice ancient, but it also starts earlier than preconceived. To evaluate this idea, researchers studied human, toddlers, and chimpanzees' ability to place a ball into one of three boxes. The first group, which was viewed by the second group, placed their ball into one of the three boxes. Then the second group also placed their ball into one of the boxes, which was found that it was the same box that was placed by the first group. Hahn states this tendency to conform might have provided an evolutionary benefit that helped humans learn new skills and avoid danger. Peer pressure is portrayed in the short story Through the Tunnel. Throughout his journey, Jerry finds a group of boys his age and immediately longs for their approval. And it can be seen with these quotes: "To be with them, of them was a craving that filled his whole body, but he was happy he was with them." He sees the group diving into the water and miraculously finding a hole underwater, swimming through it, and emerging the other end. When he can't perform the dive like the others did, he expresses his dejection. They were leaving to get away from him. He cried openly, fists in his eyes. There was no one to see him, and he cried himself out. Not only does this appear in fiction, but also in real-life stories. Simone Biles' story of dropping out of the 2021 Tokyo Olympics is similar to how the influence of outside pressure can sway outside opinion sways an individual's action. However, her story serves as a juxtaposition to Through the Tunnel. Despite the careful watch of the public eye, she decided to choose herself rather than others. Thompson writes, "She understood that telling the truth would get her labeled a quitter. She knew she was bucking against the ingrained culture and that condemnation would come because she's dealt with this dynamic her entire career." Unlike Biles' raw courage, many individuals bow to the pressure of outside judgment. Wine states teens are especially responsive to peer pressure. They undergo changes that make them highly attuned to social situations. At the same time, their brain becomes extra sensitive to their reward system becomes extra sensitive, making things like compliments stimulate their brain. The constant pressure of how one is perceived can lead to an obsession with being perfect. Relating to Through the Tunnel, Jerry notices that his yearning to be a part of the group drives his motivation to achieve the impossible task of swimming through the tunnel. Day after day, he builds up his endurance, never faltering in motivation, even stating that he would do it if it would kill him. So engulfed in his execution, he forgets all about why he began his task in the first place. Although his initial goal was fueled by societal pressure and outside judgment, his inclination to achieve peak performance turned into obsession. The idea of obsession with perfectionism has a clear presence in Thompson's Simone Biles article. He writes, "In the way sports confines the meaning of courage while perennially entertaining, I find to be more theatrical than relatable. While the stories of athletes can be endearing, the facade of hard work and perseverance is to upkeep the spectacle of superhuman-like strength and endurance through the painstaking life of an athlete. The culture of perfectionism is so normalized that it is turned into the standard of effort one should commit." Biles' choice to face the pressures that drive most people to an obsession with their performance was extremely courageous. For modern society, it feeds off the toxic work culture and won't hesitate to jump on someone if they choose to go against it. The craving for others' approval and acceptance can not only take a toll on one's performance of said task, but can also lead to burnout. WebMD cites burnout as a form of exhaustion by constantly feeling swamped. It happens when we experience too much emotional, physical, and mental fatigue for too long. Symptoms can be recognized as a reduced performance or inability to perform at all. Physical burnout symptoms can include aches, headaches, loss of appetite, and insomnia, and mental symptoms can include loneliness, loss of a sense of purpose, dissatisfaction, or the feeling of incapability. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics, 70% of kids drop out of organized youth groups youth sports by age 13. In addition, nearly 1 in 10 youth athletes experience burnout, and as many as 35% overtraining. Additionally, according to a study by the British Journal of Sports Medicine, around 33% of college athletes decide to quit their sport. This increasing percentage of students quitting their collegiate sport is due to a loss of interest and the feeling of being overwhelmed, which can both be accredited to burnout. Burnout doesn't just happen to athletes, however, but students as well. The National Library of Medicine provided a study researching the regularity of burnout within medical school students. They concluded that burnout is extremely common, especially in high-stress environments like medical school. Having an equal balance between good and bad peer pressure can prove to be beneficial. This balance can be achieved by adolescents building their self-confidence, being communicative, knowing how and when to say no, and building a wide social network. Burnout can be maintained by getting enough sleep, setting time for relaxing or stress-free activities, and finding support systems. Being able to maintain a good balance of these is helpful when trying to combat the difficulties of being surrounded by a busy and influential society. To conclude, societal influence, whether positive or negative, plays a big part in decision making, significantly taking place in motivating factors to perform specific actions. This impact on motivation leads to an obsession with perfection and a high chance of burnout. This can be seen in both Through the Tunnel and Simone Biles' story of quitting. Being able to recognize the signs of negative peer pressure and burnout can lead to a better quality life for an individual.
Thanks. What information did you need that you weren't able to find or locate?
I wanted to find more examples of college athletes dropping out of their sports and like their feelings of overwhelm, like personal stories. However, I couldn't really find any. I found this one article that kind of touched on it for like a little bit, but I wanted to find more of like personal stories from like after they dropped out and like what they were feeling and how much pressure it is to be both a student and an athlete at the same time, and the burnout that they experienced.
Okay. What additional questions emerged from your research and why are they important?
An additional question was, as I was kind of researching, I noticed that in my personal life that burnout isn't really like a topic that's really well communicated. Like for example, when like especially in junior year, like the amount of like hard work that happens in this year, we're just expected to put our heads down and just work through it, but I feel like a question that I asked is why isn't there more resources to help students or athletes with burnout, and like how can it be prevented? And this is important because burnout is an extremely influential thing, and it can really affect how someone's performance is.
Okay, thank you.